close, right? We don't have.
He must be online.
She's downstairs.
He's downstairs, so you do not have.
Yeah.
Oh, we don't secretary tonight. You have that one? Mr. Morris has joined us. You able to find it? Parking space was part, I know, I parked down below. It's budget meeting. Everybody wants to come to your. There's lots of spread. Okay, so we are recording, and we are live streaming, so we are good to go. I'm gonna call the meeting to order, Town of Newington Conservation Commission for March 17th, 2026. Chris, would you take the roll call, please? This is not in alphabetical order, I apologize. Andreas Sedil?
Here.
Jeffrey Zellick? Here. Bernadette Conway? Not present. Alan Paskowitz? Not present. David Wemmett?
Here.
John Bacan?
Here.
Did I say that right?
Rashawn.
Rashawn. Keith Henderson?
Here.
Vincent Morris? Here. Stephen Ellis? Not present. And Greg Ostrinsky? Here. Did I say that right?
Yes.
First, did Commissioner Conway or Commissioner Paskowitz make an indication during their attendance tonight?
If they responded to the email, it was late in the day and I haven't seen it.
All right, for Commissioner Paskowitz, I'm going to see Commissioner Morris.
You're seated.
And for Commissioner Conway, I'm gonna seat Commissioner Ostrinsky. Next item on the agenda is acceptance of minutes from the 17th meeting. Sorry, I may have misstated that today's meeting is April 21st, 2026. I may have said March 17th. To acceptance of the minutes from the March 17th, 2026 meeting.
So moved.
Corrections? Seeing none, all in favor of accepting the minutes?
Oh, we need a motion.
A motion.
Who seconded? I'll second it.
And aye. Motion by Matt, seconded by John, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Seeing none, unanimously. To the next item is public participation. So we have a public hearing. Our public hearing was closed. So we'll move on to the next item, which is public participation on agenda items. Any member of the public wishing to speak, please come forward. Anybody online?
No.
Nobody online. Then move on to new business. Into old business, application RW 26-2 to extend parking feet and add a retaining wall into the historical pad site at Turnpike in the PD Plan Development Zone. Applicant Berlin Turnpike 29 LLC contact Andrew Moore, Esquire, owner of Berlin Turnpike 2929. Last meeting, we closed the public hearing, and at this point, the commission enters into deliberations. We won't be entering any new information into the record since the public hearing is closed, and the public does not have an opportunity to respond to any. So, commissioners will go into deliberations.
I have one question,
Start
Sarah.
commission. Okay, Commissioner Bashan.
I was reading the ordinances or the regulations and the statutes. And I was under the assumption most of the time that we don't make conditions on approvals. But it seemed to indicate in those statutes that we do have the ability to condition approvals.
You do condition, you have 10 standard conditions.
Well, I'm just saying, but like, something more serious than just a standard condition.
No, you can make a condition.
Because I know on ZBA, we basically tell them, no, you want 50 feet, we're giving you 25, take it or leave it. You know,
So
so
we've always left that open. We put
Okay.
any condition on the application that we want. But so it is an option. So as far as deliberations, going to give you some of my observations here regarding this application. So this application came before us last year in July. Back then, it was a no. I've seen no modifications to the application that lead me to change my opinion. So I'm still a solid no. There's no singular reason for denial. There were actually many, in my opinion. The application came before the commission 3 separate occasions. First was denied in July of 2025. The second and third applications that followed showed no significant attempt to address the concerns of the commission. For all intents and purposes, the same application with no major modifications was presented again and again. And I feel it would be hypocritical of the commission to change its position for an application that was previously denied and resubmitted with no major modifications. Please refer to the record of the first application for the reasons of denial. The application began with a violation of the wetland regulations and was brought to the attention of the town engineer's office that there was tree cutting and fill material being deposited at the site with no permit to conduct these types of activities in a regulated upland review area. I do not believe in rewarding violators, especially those with plenty of development experience and knowledge of the permitting process. So this is not like we're dealing with simple neighborhood violation. This is and who is well aware of the permitting process. Stewardship of the environment is a concern of mine. And so we've seen that we have a violation. We've seen poor stewardship of the wetlands in the upland area. The presentation materials for this application showed excessive amounts of garbage in the upland review area. We heard testimony of poor conditions and that snow plowing was pushing additional debris down the embankment into the vegetative buffer area. The applicant has not offered any long-term management plan to ensure the future maintenance of the area. I'm concerned that once the proposed development is completed, the concerns will be further compounded as the protected vegetative buffer will be greatly diminished. Regarding case law that the attorney had cited and the need for the commission to show direct impact to the wetlands as a reason for denial, I don't believe that, or I do believe that this case law is flawed and it eviscerates the powers of the Wetland Commission to perform their duties to protect not only the wetlands proper, but it also removes the powers to protect the upland area, the environment, and its wildlife from, and also it doesn't allow us to protect the natural resources for future generations to enjoy. The entire preamble of our wetland regulations stresses the need to protect our natural assets. We are tasked with defending our environment and wildlife. Our regulations set the tone for our duties, yet we cannot protect these areas or these resources if we are strictly limited to having to show direct impact on the wetland zone. Challenge that case law and believe that it's time to restore the water powers to the wetlands commissions. The perception of misrepresentation by the application as it was filed. This is brought into question as the application stated that this is for a parking lot. It came into question that the actual intent is to maximize the footprint of the pad site to allow for future building to increase resale value. Also call into question the possibility of misrepresenting the impact or the extent of the filling operations. The first and second times this application came before us, the commission directly asked to be provided the filling volumes. These are pretty basic engineering calculations that should have been easily provided, but were not. I sense those figures were intentionally withheld as to not shock or upset the commission. Additionally, the third application submitted to the commission left the fill checkbox blank. The unchecked fill box may have been an oversight, but taken with what seems to be a reluctance to provide filling calculations gives the appearance of avoiding the discussion of filling. During the three applications, the applicant offered no alternatives, compromises, or major modifications to the plans. Reasonable and prudent alternatives to the proposal exist. The commission has stated they are not opposed to allowing a parking lot to the current edge of slope. The impact to the vegetative buffer and the construction of a large block retaining wall and excessive amounts of filling in the upland review remain an issue. If the applicant would remove 12 parking spaces and pull the retaining wall away from the wetlands and eliminate the severe impact to the vegetative buffer and greatly reduce the filling, then a compromise might have been acceptable to all. But no compromise during all three applications was offered. The inland wetland regulations, sections 3.6, recognize the need for preserving a vegetative buffer. This application has basically deforested the upland review area of all large growth trees and eliminates all but the insignificant and all but leaves an insignificant slice of the buffer. With all that said, this application remains a no for me. Commissioner's comment, please.
I have plenty to say. I don't have any notes though, so to kind of ad lib it. I agree with a lot of the premise of what the chairman has said. And just to reiterate, so the first application ended in a no vote, or was it withdrawn?
The motion was made to pass, but the motion failed.
Okay.
So it wasn't a motion to
It wasn't a
deny.
no, yeah,
Correct.
never is. My concerns have been the same from the very beginning, same thing, that the amount of the buffer that we're losing is the threat to the wetland. And I confirmed it with George Logan that no amount of stormwater mitigation can change that. So it doesn't mean that one or the other is that they don't work together. In other words, one could be separate from the other. There can remain a significant likely impact to the physical characteristic of the wetland by this massive, I call it massive or extreme or extensive consumption of the buffer. So I agree that we kind of hinted all along. I would just make the proposal that if we do vote on it, or one possible compromise would be that if we vote to approve, that we condition that parking lot and that retaining wall does not exceed the existing parking lot that's there now. And we'd have to hash that details out more than just that. But
Yeah, that's more than a condition, that's redrafting of the site.
well, that's why I asked that question initially, because so we don't have to force them to come back again. And I think that what you said that and you could confirm, Chris, that this has been in violation for how long? 6 months, 8 months now?
Oh, yes.
And we've made no effort to stop them. And we kind of agreed in an email that, we're gonna allow it as the status quo for now. But I think the town is doing their share. Has the applicant paid for the application every time they've reapplied, or
Yes, they have.
have you exercised that flexibility that you have to?
No, in this case, they paid the fee for each of the 3 applications.
But I'm just saying that we have, I think the town has made a good faith effort to hear their plan and to accept their, you have to accept their application, of course, but. So yeah, I'm a no with the way that it stands, and if we can't condition it, then it's just a no. And my reasoning is based on, again, the impact of the physical characteristics. We're talking about building a wall there. This is not, we heard from George Logan, and I think everyone agrees, it's not a real highly viable wetland, but guess what? It's the only wetland that's on that site. Between 2 major wetlands, there's a vast island of heat and asphalt and impervious surfaces, in which this wetland is the only resource or relief, that's available. So removing that much of the buffer, having a wall there facing due west, the heat from everything is just going to soak into that. It's going to change the physical characteristic of that water course. So yeah, that's my 2 cents worth. And again, if we can't, you're saying we can't condition it. The way I read the regulations, it almost suggested that could, but
Well,
I was
your
questioning.
suggestion is a little more than, like the chairman said, it's a design change as opposed to a condition. Point of order is that Pasquich is now logged on.
But when did Commissioner Paskowitz join us?
Oh, within the last 5 minutes.
Commissioner Paskowitz, we're in the middle of deliberations, and I've already seated Commissioner Morris. I already went through a lengthy statement. I don't know if you heard it or not.
No, I did not, and I actually got an email earlier that said that the meeting was canceled. So I'm disputing what's going on here, why somebody sent me an email that it was canceled.
I sent out notice that the room had moved. I don't recall a cancellation being mentioned.
That's all I know.
In
I
my
got,
emails.
I think someone replied all saying they weren't gonna make it.
Gail replied she wasn't coming. Yeah, she's got town
Ah.
council tonight.
We don't know where the confusion is there, Commissioner. But I would like to continue to have Commissioner Morris be seated.
Yes, please do. I'll just listen in at this point. Thank you.
Moving on, Commissioner Lamette, any comments?
We sort of forced him into a bad traffic situation, right?
Big pardon?
We forced the applicant into a bit of a bad traffic situation, right?
Well, the traffic situation came from the success of the restaurant,
Right.
where they expanded the capacity of the existing parking. And that's why the applicant,
In other words,
Yeah, and I would like to
We
say that
allowed them
if you allow me, we have not done anything. We've not forced them into any situation.
wasn't it a traffic thing with DOT?
don't remember.
Didn't DOT want them to have a bigger traffic opening onto the road?
There was a discussion with DOT if they were to build another structure on that site, that
okay,
they would have to have a different entrance. But that's another matter.
Okay. But I have nothing more to say about that.
Commissioner Anderson?
So I mean, I have my personal viewpoint. I'm looking at George Logan's report, March 11th, 2026, wrote for our commission. And basically ended, their opinion and proposed activities will not adversely affect the functions and values of the wetlands and water course. Furthermore, the project appears consistent with the intent of our regulations, which seek to protect regulated resources while allowing reasonable use of the property. I look at that, this is our paid professional that goes out. Obviously, none of us here are paid professionals in this field. So I'm gonna take their word over this. Now, I've had numerous opportunities over the past year to go out to this site. Especially, I've always had an interest after heavy rainstorms. And looked at this wetland in the current condition and seeing the erosion and siltation of that stream and that sandy bed directly above it. And to my opinion, having a wall like this will at least will stop that siltation, will stop having that erosion issue in that area. So I understand your viewpoint very well, but my viewpoint, I would vote yes.
So I just want to make a comment, you know, we used George in the past and we relied on him heavily for that project over on Kids Lane. I don't know if any of the commissioners have been by there to see the progress of that project,
Oh, yeah.
but it saddens me what we allowed to happen over there. It's basically completely forested except for a tiny sliver, which George said would be significant protection for the wetlands. I now seem to have a different opinion than George Logan is. I don't think he protected that wetland. Sean.
I mean, you did vote against that. I voted for it. So I guess, you know, I haven't looked at it that closely. I don't agree that I have a different opinion of George, but to your point, that's why I question him. The function and value of the water is different than the physical characteristic of the total wetland resource. But that's why I wanted him on the record to confirm or deny or tell me I was crazy. And he seemed to confirm it. It's in the minutes, so I'm not gonna just, you know, change the minutes, so. I still appreciate George, but I see what you're saying. That place looks like a bomb went off. But you have to break some eggs before you make an omelet.
Was. I have to ask you separately, but what they've done there on Kids Lane, is that in excess of what they agreed to do?
So far, all
Sure looks it.
they have done so far is clear the trees where the buildings are going.
Weren't they supposed to leave something?
Supposed to
Weren't they supposed to leave a lot more than they've left?
No, the areas that they cleared, I have confirmed. I've been to the site several times.
It does look like a bomb went off.
One of the, well, that is the nature of the disturbance of that soil. When they took the buildings out, that left a hole
Right.
as they started moving material around, taking the stumps out. It does completely upheave the entire surface, and it does look like a bomb went off. But as far as if you were to go out there and look where the silt fencing is placed, that's per the plan. And that's what I was looking for, is that the silt fence was there, that it was functioning, that it was protecting that pocket, and then the after part of the property. One of the things I think that affects the view is as you're driving down Kids, you can now see the entire side of the construction yard and the electrician's yard above it. So you see both of these properties. Coincidentally, I had spoken to that property owner today, and they plan to start bringing in mature pine trees he's got from another job site to start planting, because he's aware of how it makes his property look. And he's doing that in coordination with Mr. Snow.
Deputy Commissioner Ostrowski.
So the big things we're looking for wetlands are water storage, stormwater runoff, and ecology, kind of like protecting the biodiversity of a wetland. The wetland we're talking about here serves neither of those purposes. It is full of invasive plants, being right next to the Berlin Turnpike, and it doesn't store any water. It's a drainage swale going from one wetland to another. The system that they're putting in is very, very interesting and a really good way to prevent some of the pollution we're dealing with now. Right now, a lot of that water comes straight off the parking lots and the turnpike and just dumps into that river. And that water is very dirty. Having done a lot of stormwater sampling, that water is very dirty. The system that they're putting in is not only going to clean up the water, it's going to prevent larger pieces of garbage, things like that, from getting into the water itself. And so I am a yes.
I don't disagree that it'll improve water quality. I just
Not from the
think
Berlin Turnpike though.
It's not from the turnpike, but the water that's going in there is going to be
If there's water
much cleaner.
like from that site.
Mhm.
As I said in the past,
Uh,
putting a parking lot in, as long as it's to the current edge of slope, not an issue. Putting that retaining wall, I think you just put far too much of a buffer.
I would be concerned about the buffer if there was more of an ecological importance to that wetland, but there kind of isn't. It's full of multiflora rose, it's full of Phragmites, it's full of species that just take over, and they just kind of, they spread and take over areas that,
Right,
and they kill everything else, all of the natives, everything.
that seems to be the way all wetlands are still managed.
But this
I think
isn't a wetland that can serve that ecological purpose, being right next to the turnpike, the other side is a giant parking lot. I'm very much a yes, because I don't believe that this wetland serves those purposes that we're debating about here. And our consultant, their consultant, everyone's kind of said the same thing.
I kind of go back to what Commissioner Sean said about the characteristic that that buffer serves. Important part. Changing the characteristic of the wetland, even though, you know, it's not a viable, significant. Yeah, there are invasives everywhere.
It's been a good one.
We won't fight them, you know, we're all hoping that they'll go away with it. I think this is impacting the characteristic of the wetland.
Say one thing, that just one argument to you.
Mhm.
If we're all in agreement, it's not very pretty there, it's not a vernal pool per se, or at least we don't know if it is or not, but if you were a living creature anywhere between the two viable wetlands, which is 1,000 feet in one direction and a couple thousand feet in the other direction, that would be your only source, so you don't have much choice, so I don't think we should discount it completely.
That's fair, but
Let's just say, continue that any living creature doesn't care too much about the invasive fauna. Put it that way.
they kind of do, because a lot of the invasives
I
don't
think
serve,
yeah, I should-
don't serve the
yeah, I should
purposes
admit
that
that.
natives do. They don't serve as food for animals, they don't serve as homes for native bugs and things like that. The other argument I would say is that the only thing I can see is the pathway between the two wetlands, and even that is blocked off by the Berlin Turnpike.
Like you call it the corridor, or I call it the
Thank you,
corridor.
that's
yeah.
the word.
I think a lot of animals can still use it, but smaller animals.
To an extent, so I've done a lot of, I spent a summer doing, working with Connecticut Fund for the Environment, and bridges like big bridges, usually don't hamper too much pathways through, but what we're dealing with there is a giant culvert, and that does kind of, it discourages animals from passing through. Anyway, yes.
Commissioner Morris?
As you've mentioned, there have been no changes to this thing through the entire process. And I originally voted no. Nothing has changed. Basically, my argument then and now is that the reduction of the buffer, just has to reduce, the viability of wetland. It can't be other than that. Otherwise, you can't call it a buffer. If it's less a buffer, you've damaged it. And the other thing is, two things. It's a shame because I think they've done a very impressive job within the walls. Okay,
that's innovative and it does what it's supposed to do. It's too bad that, suggestions to, shorten, the, southern wall have not been taken. That's the argument, of, well, you know, previous development is seriously compromised that way. Just because it's already been compromised is not to me an argument to make it worse. So I don't know.
Go to Commissioner Siddell online.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I do have a question from for Chris Zabito. One of the recommendations from Rima Associates was this construction sequencing. Has that happened? Is that what did that consist of? Did they submit a plan about that wall construction? Has that been done?
Yes, what he was referring to there, and it is outlined in the, I want to say it was, Mr. Gustafson's report, is that as they build the wall, that they are expected to restore the base of the wall prior to completing the vertical aspects of the wall. So the base course gets built, then the beginning of the backfill starts up to that elevation, and then the restoration of the wetland on the far side or the water channel side of the wall would take place. And then they would continue with building the wall, so that the disturbed areas are restored prior to the walls being built to a point where you would have more difficulty with doing the groundwork. So the plantings take place after the first course of wall. You follow?
Yeah, so that's all been documented and they're gonna abide to that.
Well, if you approve them, yes, we can hold them to the soil scientist's report. And
Is that gonna be a condition? Is that gonna be a condition or?
we can certainly make it an explicit condition.
Okay,
They've
was he
already-
that? Go ahead.
They have already agreed to build it in that manner.
It's part of the record, so I don't.
Okay.
So no condition required for that. That's settled.
Correct.
All right. Well, here's where I'm at. I voted no the first time because I wanted a second opinion, professional opinion. I'm not expert soil scientist and ecologist and what have you, but that was my reason I voted no. I wanted another opinion on this project. It's gonna be quite a big project, change the nature of the upland review area. And I am swayed by George Logan's testimony. He says in his conclusions that importantly, the project avoids direct wetland or watercourse disturbance and limits regulated activities to the upland review area while incorporating erosion and sedimentation controls, stormwater treatment measures, and other construction safeguards intended to minimize indirect impacts. The proposal also reflects a reasonable approach to site redevelopment within the constrained commercial setting where existing impervious cover and historic disturbance have already influenced the character and function of the adjacent watercourse. In this context, the project's stormwater management measures, pre-treatment systems, and a level spread of discharge configuration represent appropriate design elements intended to improve runoff treatment and promote infiltration relative to existing conditions. So that is sort of what I was looking for. And that's sort of, I'm leaning on a yes on this at this point. I'll go with his opinion. That's the bottom line. I wanted a second opinion. I got it. Thank you. That's basically in a nutshell. I'm ready. I think we've done enough work here in engineering. 2 people have looked at this in extent and I'm satisfied. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Siddell. I just want to respond to you. One thing that I had asked George was, is this the best application that it could possibly be? And, you know, he hesitated and he said, well, if we remove those 12 parking spaces and pull that retaining wall back, that would be more ideal, but, you know, economics being what they are, you know, he kind of rambled on, you know,
Mhm.
a little bit there, but, again, I think we would have a better application, a more agreeable application if that wall had been pulled back, eliminating those 12 parking spaces. As George Logan had pointed out. So anything else further? Any other commissioners, further comments? All right, then seeing no further comments, I'd like to get a motion. We'll make a motion to approve. So can I get a motion? Conditions or the motion was handed out? Do I have the only copy?
The 10 standard?
No, that's conditions, but the motion.
No, everybody's got a motion sheet.
So they secretary. For a second.
If anyone does not have one, I have one.
The motion to approve the conditions is, the motion to approve application IW 26-2 at 2929 Berlin Turnpike with 10 standard conditions per section 11.10 of the regulations and any other conditions as the commission may require, properly motioned and approved. Any other conditions the commission may wish to impose should be discussed and added to the 10 standard conditions.
But he would only make that motion if he wanted to make that motion.
No, I'm asking for motions. We have to bring this to a vote.
I understand, but he wouldn't make that motion if he didn't want to make that motion.
I'm asking, his duty as a secretary, I'm asking.
Yeah, I read the motion. Do you want me to read the other motion also?
No. We'll take this one motion at a time. Can I get a second on the motion?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Anderson. Go to a roll call vote. But before I do that, I'll just ask, are there any conditions that the commission wants to have added to the application?
I would love to add that condition, but it doesn't look like it's gonna go there, so the one that I talked about.
It's more of a site modification.
There was discussion about a monitor during construction.
That's
I
also
forget-
part of the wetlands report and also agreed
Okay.
to.
Could that be added to the motions to like get a report to us?
We already discussed that at the
It's
public
done.
hearing, and it is
Oh, okay,
already agreed to by the applicant.
got it.
The soil scientist, Mr. Gustafson, will monitor the construction and report back to the town as well as to the client.
Okay, perfect. Cool.
All right, seeing no other discussion regarding the conditions, I'll go to roll call vote. Again, this is a motion to approve. Commissioner Anderson,
Approve. Yes.
Commissioner Bouchant,
No,
Commissioner Morris,
No,
Commissioner Snirsky,
Yes.
Commissioner Siddell,
Yes.
Commissioner Romet,
Yes.
Chairman Zelik, I'm a no. 4 votes in favor. The motion passes with majority. The application is approved.
thank you.
First, we done about 9 now.
This is item B, update to the commission regarding state of application, IW 24-5. 549 Cedar Street. 24-5. Some items.
Yeah, I'm sure they will.
Yeah, did you get the email with the login?
Here. Yeah, or I have the agenda.
Yes.
Would have been nice if they had. Sure. I don't know.
Yeah, you have an agent sign it.
I think so, yeah.
I'm not sure exactly how that works.
That's just from a pure practical standpoint. 12 more spaces, 3 or
Alright,
4
we can do
million
it that
dollars
way.
to get them. But that's it.
Yep. Once you pop up, I'll promote you to a panelist. This partnership.
You know, we need another smoke shop. The other one went out of business.
Yeah. But the one across the street from that smoke shop's still around.
Oh, good. I was worried there wouldn't be no smoke shops in the Berlin Turnpike.
Before you
Just
get
wondered
down
before-
hill too far here, just remember, we are recording this.
We have 3, right?
All right, did you, is that the most current thing now?
3, correct?
We had a room change, so you might be using the old one.
Just was wondering, maybe you do. I don't know if I spent a lot of money on
You
it.
wouldn't- Yesterday?
I just have the one from you from Friday about the room.
This restaurant.
Should be one from
Yeah.
Paul Addington.
Chris.
That's like a recording.
From her.
Everything that goes there is good.
Well, it is being recorded at the moment. I have so many screens open to do this. I'm afraid that I will hit something wrong. Don't say anything you don't want your kids to hear.
Mr. Sermon, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
hello.
He has a long history, his family has a long history with our town, as a town clerk, right?
Town clerk,
For
yeah.
many years.
Let me try
Not a
this.
lot of records.
If I can get to my email here, I will try forwarding you mine. You may come up as me,
Okay.
but we'll fix that. I need a bigger screen, is what I. Or if you wanna try,
No.
well, that's town council.
Oh, I clicked on them.
If you wanna try going to Zoom to, do you know how to get into Zoom to go to the webinar? All right, so let me give you the meeting info, let's try that. So this is webinar ID 890.
No. They're working on it.
Let's not rely on the one there because I don't have total faith that that's gonna give you the right one.
It's the meeting ID?
All right, so 890 4231
That's cool. I've never gotten to work on it.
9886
Hey, I'm sorry, 890-4231-9.
886.
That's code.
I will screen here.
So you might already be covering this, but do you mind if I ask, like, how deep is the bedrock there?
The top of bedrock is only a few feet, in
Oh,
some
wow.
place like 2 or 3 feet.
Look at it. That's.
Yeah, and then it's that the red sandstone siltstone. So
Okay,
um,
you ready for the password?
yes,
972024.
So I can see the meeting.
Road mutual panelist. You are able to be, you're able to share your screen now.
Okay, you got it.
Right.
Success.
There you go. All right. Thanks everybody for your patience.
Andreas, can you see that?
Yes, I can.
All right, yeah, thanks everybody for your patience, Chairman, board members, thanks for letting me come in today. I did, I was in here about 2 years ago. We've done a lot of work out there at that Beacon property on Cedar Street, so I wanted to, provide an update. And, the project is continuing, so
If I can interrupt just for a second, we may have some new members on the commission who aren't familiar with
Sure.
the project, so maybe give them a quick high overview.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, with that, I'll jump into it. So this property, 549 Cedar Street, it's over kind of on the way to Central, west of the center. For reference, here's Mill Pond and the golf course here, and then the railroad tracks and the wetland radio station down there. So it's kind of, I don't know.
Former Atlantic machine.
Yep, former Atlantic machine, turbine engine components after that. What's that?
Textron.
Yes, and
last iteration, they tore the building down.
Tech. Oh, the building's still there.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Textron, yeah, so Textron is our client. And because the property was transferred, because they, stored and generated hazardous waste there, the property was subject to the Property Transfer Act. So when they transferred it, it started the process to require environmental assessment and cleanup. So we started doing investigation, not me personally, but my company and former heritage companies around 2003. I think, let me see yeah. So it's from Cedar Street to the railroad tracks to the back of the residential properties and down to about here. So yeah, because the Property Transfer Act requires investigation and cleanup, so Textron has taken that on and is still in the process of doing that. So yeah, in 2003, associated with the former, like you said, machining, manufacturing facility, aerospace manufacturing. Later, but there were impacts across the site in shallow soils and some deeper, some PCBs, petroleum, metals, VOCs, volatile organic compounds, and that's primarily the lingering issue that we're working on now is the VOCs, like PCE, TCE, trichloroethylene.
Is vinyl chloride, is that a VOC?
We'll get to all that later, but
How did the
yes.
PCBs end up in that?
The PCBs were,
Would be a cooling oil, oh, so it could have been a cooling oil for the machining process.
yeah.
That's the
it
worst of
was-
everything. You could throw everything out the window if you have that, you're in trouble.
Yeah, there are different rules for cleanup of PCBs. Those were primarily on the Sousa,
electric
yeah, it's
transformers.
currently Sousa property. Trying to remember if we I'm not 100% sure.
So you're not dealing with them back here?
No, the PCBs were cleaned up. That was 2012, and then again in 2018, we did soil remediation, dug out all the PCBs and shipped them away. In 2018, we constructed this capped consolidation area on the back of the site for some of the not PCB but lower level PAH petroleum metals impacts, rather than sending thousands of trucks to just go in the ground somewhere else. We capped it on site under a like a rubber impermeable liner, and we maintain that. There's a 18 inches of cover over it. We mow the grass, maintain it, complete. We do groundwater monitoring every year around it, make sure it's stable.
You're still treating that?
So the soil impacts have been addressed. We've removed the soil that has to come out. The remaining soil that's there is under that engineer control that's permitted by Connecticut Deep, so that can stay there forever.
Okay, so there's no mitigation going on that mound?
No,
No?
the mound and the cap over it is the long-term solution.
That's a forever cap.
Until someone invents a way to cheaply clean up.
And what's under there? Is that the same thing, the same cocktail of all those different things? It's metal chips, I remember you said.
Metals, yeah. So PAHs, petroleum metals, primarily what's in that engineer control.
So that's not making its way to the groundwater?
No, we have that was all included in the application to Connecticut Deep for the engineer control. And before it was consolidated and capped, we had groundwater data showing that it was not leaching out. And then after it was constructed in 2018, we did additional groundwater monitoring, showing it was not leaching, stable.
And just for the newcomers, that should be made clear that this was intentionally put there. This was their dumping grounds. So they went out the back door and dumped it, which was common for the time.
Yeah, before, but the work that we did in 2018 was all permitted through Connecticut Deep and here. Let's see. So yeah, engineer control. Yeah, like I said, to clarify, all the work is permitted through Connecticut Deep, overseen by Connecticut Deep, including the groundwater treatment, the injection work. So the VOC contamination in groundwater, it has some challenges, like you mentioned, because bedrock is so shallow. That contamination did, when it was released, it did percolate down into the bedrock, which is harder to clean up than if it was 50 feet of sand. Or so it is a long-term process to try and clean that up as best as feasible. That is under Connecticut Deep approval for the injection. So in 2018, we did the first, I'll flip to the next slide. This is, so this area in yellow, but it's flipped on its side so that north is left. So the building is over to the left. You can see the limit of the engineer control. The kind of the area with all the dots is largely the area where the VOCs was released to the ground surface and percolated down into bedrock. Further groundwater in this area typically goes south and west, so right and down on the screen. So in 2018, we started doing a pilot test for the groundwater treatment, just to show that the process worked, to show that we could get the distribution in the bedrock to do the cleanup. So 2018, 2021, I believe, or 2022, we did 2 phases of a pilot test in the southern portion of the release area. And based on the positive results from that, we proposed the same kind of technology, treating a larger area of the main release area. So that was 2024, based on this commission's approval, we installed a grid of wells in this area. We also did some geophysics. Some of the wells, we drilled the 4-inch hole, and there's an instrument that you can put down that kind of video records the rocks, so you can see where the fractures are, and it measures the temperature, so you can see if water's going in or out, and other measurements to help us to kind of see where the fractures are and where they're going. Overall, it's consistent with, like I said, kind of the northeast to southwest major alignment of the fractures, but there are other components with the fractures kind of going up and to the west. So I'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, in 2024, we were able to install these wells and collect additional data. We were fortunate. I don't know if you can really tell by the topography lines here, but I have another slide if we want to look at it. This area is largely elevated above that drainage swale, so it was pretty dry. We didn't have any issues with the drill rig rutting in, or no significant land disturbance. We were able to leave, kind of work around the large trees and keep those intact. Not make extra work for anybody or any extra disturbance. And because there was that network, nice grid network of wells, we were able to better delineate, where the hotspots of the contamination were. Heat map, red is the worst contamination, and then blue and green is relatively cleaner. Actually, with our modern tools, we were able to put it into a program that generates a 3D model. Because we had so many wells in a grid, and with the different elevations that the well screens were at, certain lines in the grid targeted shallow versus deep, we were able to get a much better picture than we had before of where the most impacted pockets of contamination were. So one of the geologists in our office presented this at it was the Geological Society of America conference in Hartford a few weeks ago. One of our geologists presented this along with the geophysical results.
So what is it, like a science class for the field?
Yeah, it's
Is this a little bit extraordinary, in other words?
It's nice, to be able to have a site where this works out, to get, this level of data. The client was supportive of, getting this data, doing the presentation at the conference and all that. But like I'll, go into next, seeing where the pockets of higher contamination was allowed us to, kind of better target the injections when we were doing the injection. So over on the western side, we were closer to the limit, the levels were lower. We didn't inject as much over, kind of a pocket up north, and then over toward the eastern side, the levels were a little bit higher. So we focused more over there as much as we could.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, question real quick, if I may, or wait to the end.
Go ahead, yeah, sure, Commissioner Snell.
So relative to the level of contamination, is there a correlation between depth and the actual contamination? Is there any correlation there between shallow and deep between these hotspots that you're showing?
Yes, actually, this is probably a pretty good slide to show it. You could see that in some areas, possibly because of the characteristics of the bedrock, the contamination stayed shallower. In other areas, maybe because that had a more open vertical fracture, it was seen deeper. Overall, just for scale, the bottom of these wells is typically around 50 feet. So and we have data toward the bottom specifically that shows that that's the limit of it. It was, once you get down to 50 feet and below, there's less fractures. The rock is a little more competent, less weathered, so it resists the VOCs migrating further down. So
Is that about
So there's
the
like
depth of- I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say, is that about the depth of the natural aquifer? Just looking at the wetlands next door,
yeah, no, I mean the
it's not gonna be
ground,
much lower than that elevation of those wetlands next door, is it?
well, the groundwater is fairly shallow, like
But the
8 or
rest of
10.
the town, yeah.
Yeah, 8 or 10 feet deep. So in some places it's entirely within the bedrock. In some places it's above the bedrock,
So these
but
contaminants are heavier or lighter than water?
heavier than water.
Heavier, that's what
So
they're
yeah, I
going
guess
down.
just to clarify, this is all groundwater results. This is all in groundwater. And it's all the volatile organic compounds dissolved in the water at varying concentrations. But yeah, on the initial release, it did percolate down because they are heavier than water.
But petroleum products are lighter than,
Right.
so they broke down, I guess, over time. To get those VOCs and to get those volatiles, they must have broke down out of the original.
No,
they
the
were originally
original,
contained.
yeah, no, the original product was PCE or TCE.
Oh, just
It was,
straight VOC.
used in the manufacturing process for, cleaning and degreasing. So the original release was of TCE.
One more quick question, if I may. So how do these type of volatiles dissipate? Are they gonna be here for forever? Can they be vented away? Or is it just gonna through time diffuse somewhere? How does this normally these type of pollutants dissipate, or can they be dissipated?
Yeah, so some of the things you listed, in certain conditions, they can be volatilized away, or in some applications, typically not in bedrock like here, but in shallow soil that's not underwater, we do things like pull a vacuum on the soil or inject air and pull a vacuum to kind of flush it out with air from the air phase. When they're dissolved in water, they don't really flush out. They don't dissolve in water as well as salts. So it's kind of like petroleum. It'll stick to the soil, and a good part of it'll stay where it is by sticking to the soil of the rock. So in those cases, the method we used of microbiological degradation is a proven method for this kind of to degrade those products into.
Is that the yeast that you talked about? Basically, almost like
Yeah, basically. So here I have going forward a little bit. So we, with that data from the well drilling and baseline sampling, we were able to do our injections. So we had water to mix with an emulsified vegetable oil, basically soy milk. So it soybean oil, emulsified soybean oil. Like, so it comes kind of in the consistency of like a heavy cream, and then they dilute it down with water to more, like even less than skim milk. That kind of consistency to inject into the ground.
Is that a photo of the actual site or?
Yes.
It is.
Yeah, we were there in the fall. It was very nice.
The actual area of the site isn't all that big then,
No, it's
quarter of an acre or,
yeah, it's
I
probably
mean,
maybe
judging
half
by
acre or
what you
so.
see over here, it looks.
Yeah,
not that
so
far.
the building is up to the left. Here's that engineer control. Sorry for bouncing around. I'll stop.
That's good.
And then the area in the yellow rectangle, it's kind of over here. So it's
Oh,
it was historically was used as storage, and then kind of reforested
grew up.
itself. And now it's a nice.
If I walked around in there though, there'd be, where your test wells were, would be PVC pipes coming up.
You had a picture, yeah.
Yeah, here we go. So
Okay.
on the right is some more close-ups of the area. So
Steel pipes or are they PVC?
yeah, so what they do is the drillers drill a 6-inch hole with that steel piping there is used as the casing on the drill rig, so that they spin that down, hammer that down, and then they cement that in a couple feet into the top of bedrock to seal it to the bedrock, so that what we inject, goes into the bedrock, stays in the bedrock, doesn't come back up. And then inside that, they put a 2-inch PVC slotted well and sand, to hold that open and keep any fines out. So this is
If you wandered around in there right now.
Yep.
You'd see a bunch
all
of
from a
steel
lot
pipes.
of.
yeah, it's just the steel pipes.
And they're capped or are they?
They have, yeah, they
That's
have
from the
catch, the
tree
inner-
downstairs.
Just curious. I'm not questioning, I'm just curious what it would look like.
Yeah, no, those are still there. We left them there.
And they'll be
so
there
that-
forever.
Not as, well, once, if Connecticut, depending on how the site cleans up, and hopefully it does clean up. at
It's
some
not
point.
lousy, it's just a mint.
Once the state
Can be.
agrees that we've done all we can, all that the top surface completion could be pulled out and the wells, cemented up.
Okay.
Which, is the eventual goal. But yeah, for right now, it's.
But this won't be usable for anything.
I mean, I
Except
can't.
maybe a parking lot.
Yeah, I can't predict the future. I'm not the current owner of the property.
Mhm.
They may be able to use it for something.
Parking lot.
Safe to say this is gonna go on for decades longer?
Because the contaminants are absorbed into bedrock, it will take some time for them to come out. I mean, we do.
Sometime
A
like the
perfect-
lifetime of everybody in here.
A perfect cleanup may not be possible, but,
You didn't do it.
we are, the state and the Transfer Act program, requires you to clean it up to the extent possible.
Oh, yeah.
Is there any way to measure what the potential is there, what the pool of resources, like, what do they call it, when you drill for oil, they talk about what's possibly in there? Are we talking about hundreds of gallons, thousands of gallons?
Of the contaminant?
Yeah, or a relatively small amount that's just mixed with the water that makes it a higher volume.
Yeah, it has, over time, it has, dispersed and mixed with water. I don't know if I recall what the original, estimated release volume was, but it's not hundreds of thousands of gallons,
But it's thousands.
Probably, over all those
it
years.
depends. I don't, don't know what exactly was released either, but.
It's not really moving off the property, it's not moving into those wetlands to the west?
The levels migrating downstream are significantly less than what's in this source area.
Okay.
But there is some down, southerly,
Are you trying to intercept it?
migration. And that, well, what we're doing, because there's so much more mass in the source area, what we're trying to do is reduce that source as much as possible. And then, you know, over time, we expect what's down gradient to be less.
Somebody proposed a train station over here.
There is still a proposal for the Newington train station to be over there.
Loading it
This
up.
site of contamination.
Well, it's more of
Close to the Cedar Street.
It'll be easier for the
it's more
Starbucks.
to the west of this parcel, south of the Sousa building. So this parcel is on, this site, Dan's working
Thanks for
on is
putting
on
up with
the
this, because I
east
remember
side
your
of the parcel,
presentation
the
last
train
time.
station will be on the west side.
You know, it's
Not much room.
interesting, it's
Pretty narrow.
There's not
in
much.
some ways
train
kind of
track.
hopeless,
I mean,
but
obviously,
still
be on the side of it.
better than not doing
I'm
anything.
trying
Right,
to
and,
very
you know,
carefully
you
tread
can't
this
dig out
train
50
station
feet
discussion.
deep of rocks.
Oh, you
to
could
get
if
it
you
out.
really wanted to, but it would be prohibitively expensive.
I'm
right?
all for it,
More
one,
than-
but I think what you're getting at is there
Yeah,
any
well, yeah.
risk of, you know,
Yeah.
constructing or building?
There is always.
Is
a
there
risk
any,
of the state
So how
deciding
much
this
is
is
injecting? Is there any migration?
Currently, the state's
As a
appetite is
result
not
of the
to force us
injections?
to take the train station, but they are.
We do monitor for
Holding that
that
never
and
go
not
back of, you know,
significantly
you
far
promise.
away, like, you know, within.
We get it every time we have
25,
discussions.
30 feet.
Need some strange bedfellows.
Yeah,
in
not-
the- in the
Not
politics.
off.
I'm all for
yeah,
it.
not significantly
I don't-
downgraded. You know, it is pretty concentrated, so we don't, I
Right.
think we
Problem with the Walmart
injected
is it's not that close
you know,
to the train track.
500, 700 gallons.
Some
of
spots.
Well,
solution
behind traffic,
per
but
well.
not
Oh,
on
okay.
100%.
So it's
No,
it's
right
not
in
a
the bend of
ton,
the
but.
road, right there.
And have you guys seen degradation?
Let me,
Sorry, I made you.
let me move on.
There's actually traffic on the roads there.
I think this is,
Yeah, but
you know, I think this jar is actually,
You can see it right
you
here.
know, from a monitoring well 20 feet
There's the
away or
roads and
so,
there's
so
the
you can
truck.
see a diluted
That's a
version
decent
of
idea.
what we were injecting there, so we knew
It's
it
gotta be
was,
better than this
you
one.
know, getting out.
All right,
from
let's
where we
get
were
back to
injecting.
this.
Yeah, so if you go out there, you see the wells, these are our injection wellheads. You know, vents and buckets, I think we were out there in December, so we had to drain the lines, so they didn't freeze. Silt fence up along the edge of the stream there.
Mhm.
So back with what you were getting at, so what's out there, what was released was primarily PCE, TCE. What the bacteria do is take off chlorine atoms, so it goes from, you know, 4 chlorines to 3 chlorines to 2 to 1, and then no chlorines. And you know, once it gets to a zone where there's more oxygen, it degrades to carbon dioxide, and that's it.
Flashes on.
Right.
Are any
So
of those what are they called, the triple Cs, those not the industrial degreaser? The trichloroethylene?
yeah,
Trichloroethylene,
trichloroethylene, yep.
That's TP, yeah.
Yeah, chloroethylene and PCE, PERC, those were what was used, and then, you know, this is the pathway it goes down through to, in addition to injecting the you know, carbon source, the soybean oil, we also inject the certain kind of bacteria that do this dechlorination. There are some naturally, but you know, inject more to better our odds. So this is what the results typically or ideally would look like, where over time, the PCE changes to TCE, DCE, vinyl chloride, and then you know, measure for carbon.
Is that how the chemical manufacturers do it? They start with this one and then just break it down like that, or?
Yeah, or, you know, within their systems, they can go in the other direction too, to
Oh.
make it.
It's interesting that
That's-
nastiest degreaser is also what they wash our clothes in. The dry cleaners, right?
Oh,
It's the exact same chemical.
That's why there's dry cleaning sites here.
Right.
You know,
They're established.
Every dry cleaner in the state, yeah.
It's established.
We're trying to help an applicant get the one on Grand Avenue cleaned up.
Oh. Premier is sitting there empty too for a long time now.
I can only do one of these at a time.
So that previous slide was kind of get you ready for this next slide, because, you know, there's a lot of information. But, you know, the takeaway is that the TCE, we are seeing that decrease. This is, you know, since the baseline in 2024 we did a sampling event late in 2025. So over the course of a year, we are seeing that TCE go down. But the next step, that DCE in some of the areas is persisting. So that's why, you know, this year, this spring, we do plan to go out and do more injections to make the conditions right again, give the bacteria some more food, inject some more bacteria so that they can keep the process going. The other thing to kind of take away from here is, like we said, you know, down gradient, the concentrations are a lot less. I think most of these are on the same scale. I think this one is different just for illustration purposes, but as the groundwater goes down gradient, it is much reduced.
Where are the new wells going? I
So,
don't see it in the legend here on the map.
yeah, actually on this one, it's the green dots, and I'll kind of explain why quickly. You know, as I said, I had this model up here before. Some of the hotspot areas, you know, this 3 up here and 6 and 7 over here. We wanted to get some additional data near those, maybe a little further out from the information we had, just to verify it doesn't get any hotter, and then inject over there too, just to make sure we do as good a job as we can getting the amendment where it needs to go. And then
Say we
similar.
had a sampling event. When you say, and we had a sampling event,
Yeah.
like how long does that take you? You show up and you're there for like a week or
Yeah.
an hour?
Yeah,
Like,
the
okay.
field staff go out, you know, the method is to slowly pump the water out of the well so that you're not disturbing anything, and you get a representative of what's in the ground around the well. And then we send those samples off to a lab and measure for
Yeah.
those different VOCs, and then,
So most of the time, this site sits unmanned, correct?
right,
Most of this is occurring in automation.
right. Yeah, so what
Do you have any remote monitors, or can you sit in an office and log in and say, okay, something went wrong, or this ain't working, or something?
No, when we're out there doing the injections, there are people out there, but that's only a couple weeks.
Right.
Yeah, most of the time it's just sitting there reacting, and then every 3 or 6 months, we'll go out, take samples, analyze them, and update those graphs and figures and see what's going on.
Okay, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we're just curious.
Yeah,
you know,
no,
like,
absolutely.
We're kind of
Yeah, we're
like,
not,
how
probably
does
not
this
gonna
work?
retain much of this stuff.
Yeah, no,
I am
it's,
curious too, I could ask you questions.
I'm hanging on to it from the
That's
last
why
time
you
you were
got
here,
the
but that was a couple of years ago.
handout.
What's that?
That's why you got the handout.
Yeah, I still don't see the new wells, but
They're the green
They're
ones.
green.
Yeah, it's
Guys,
I
yeah,
don't see
so
green.
these green ones here, it's what this is this,
Not seeing
but you
green.
can see here.
1, 2, 3 greens, okay, 4, 5.
Well, they're all over the place.
How many did you say new, 17 or something like that?
No, we already installed, it's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 new wells.
Okay.
You know, to better delineate and better treat, make sure it's, you know, there's not a significant mass anywhere we don't really expect, so. There is a tricky thing with the timing where the injections are done under Connecticut deep permit, and in 2024, they would only extend this permit through the end of June 2026. So that's, you know, we're trying to get this work done May and June.
To do the injection or to install new wells? Both. Then what do you gotta do, reapply to them,
So
or do a similar presentation to them?
so we're trying to get what we're the permit expires the end of June, so if we can do the injections in June, then we can, take another year and a half,
That long?
see how it's working. And then if we need to go back, it would be another permit process, which unfortunately with, careful what I say on record, with the Connecticut Deep, I think the last time we applied for a permit, I think it took like a year to get.
That's fast, that's fast for the state. And when you say the injection, do you mean a single injection, or you set it up for injection over the next period of time?
No, when we go out and do the injections, it's for a couple weeks at a time. So we would, have that trailer, have our subcontractor have the trailer there, mix up the solution, and it would, be pumping into the well for 2 or 3 days. That would get the amount in that we calculated we needed for that well and the area around it. And then, the bacteria would do their thing over the next, 3, 6, 12.
Can't rush, there's nothing to rush there.
That's, the bacterial degradation rate is what it is. We try and maximize it by getting the conditions right and, injecting a slug of the bacterial colony. But yeah, it's a good process. It's good to get at all the cracks and crevices in the bedrock, but it's not, there are different chemical processes that work faster, but if you don't get the solution to where it needs to be in a couple days, then it doesn't work. It's just wasted. So in a fractured bedrock site like this is, we think this is the best method.
Well, you're getting good numbers, so that's
Yeah,
gotta be, you must be doing the right thing.
yeah, the numbers were pretty promising. The December numbers and the fact that it's plateauing, is our support that we need to go back out and inject some more. Actually, they were out there sampling last week, and based on the chemistry, they can't put the meter down the well and measure dissolved oxygen and pH. And when they pull up water, it's pretty clear. So that's suggesting that what we injected is used up, and to keep the reactions going, we should inject some more. Yeah, thanks for letting me come in and provide the update. The planned work is largely within the area. I think it's entirely within the area we slated before. So we'd like to go ahead with it.
The factories that are there, if they ever went defunct, this process would have to happen.
What do you?
Not
There's
necessarily.
some factories there.
Yeah, but the whole site isn't that contained.
Oh, right, yeah.
They're not that, like
rest of the
directly
site?
into the building, for instance, would be probably almost as contaminated as this.
No, not like that. This was a focused dumping. They were dumping, intentionally dumping.
I'm not saying.
No, I don't think so.
What it was.
Say,
There's,
because you don't know.
Yeah.
No,
there's-
we do know that's what it was.
we've, since 2003, we've been investigating. There are wells around the rest of the property also. And this was the worst area. Not saying other areas are totally
Right.
clean, but
But this was the worst area, okay.
this is the worst area. I don't believe any of the testing that we have under the building suggests there's contamination under the building.
Okay.
That is
This is
something
just
that's,
a curiosity. on my
yeah,
part.
no, that is something. that,
Wondering, eventually that factory will probably close.
So I'm sure that there are publicly available reports on the Connecticut Deep File Room website. I can point you in the direction of that.
I will say this though, Beacon recently met with town manager and the town planner. And they are currently doing well. It's unfortunate the front of the building is vacant where Textron was because it
Right.
makes it look like a vacant building.
Right.
But machine shop
Beacon is
part
doing good.
is active.
Isn't there some
But then-
Amazon activity there, trucking? I see Amazon trucks parked. I saw them last year, Amazon trucks parked there.
I don't have any knowledge on that.
I think they lease out portions of the property to different entities.
Definitely seemed like a whole
They
fleet
could,
of
they could
Amazon.
be like just parking there.
Yeah.
Sure. If they just build
We'd love to help them get the office part, the whole front part, active with something, just so it doesn't look empty.
There is
That's why they met, is to try and discuss ways the town can help that building look lived in.
there's a residential use restriction on the land records.
Thank God for that.
But
I don't live far from there, so don't scare me.
You're upgrading it. You got nothing.
Yeah, I'm uphill, but still, the fumes come out. I had a couple of questions. One, we're not creating a nuclear, like something from a Japanese, sci-fi movie with these bacteria that are thriving on this poison.
they're
They're naturally occurring.
They are naturally occurring bacteria, but just to get it in the concentrations that can really affect the remediation, they multiply them in the lab.
Okay.
Yeah, are gonna be,
They're not gonna get out like the.
yeah, the turtles are getting crawled out of that.
Bacteria, that's a
12 feet
different
tall.
story.
And how about if you went up to one of these wells, in the hottest spot, would you actually, or what's the word, or factory, would you be able to smell it?
I believe so.
You would, because it's high enough concentration in that hot spot.
Yeah, although what we, I don't know if it might be overshadowed by what we inject, the, vegetable oil.
Your bacteria
fluid.
has an aroma.
That has an aroma that I will never get out of some of my
Really?
clothes.
That's interesting. How would you describe it?
I mean, it does what it's supposed to do. It rots and it ferments and it uses
Smells
up
like
all the
sugar.
oxygen. So it's,
You're brewing
It's-
beer in a rock.
yeah, it's more like kind of yeasty organic degradation.
Okay, so somewhere between that and let's say what you would find in a grease trap in a restaurant.
Yeah,
Well, that's what he's injecting.
yeah, it's, I mean, and it's, it's.
That is a very particular stink.
Yeah, well,
Rainwater is more disgusting than sewage, to be honest with you.
But
Have to deal with both.
45 years since I cleaned a grease trap, and I can still remember that smell.
Yeah, so we after we injected, we flushed it with water to kind of get it out of the well, so that we wouldn't destroy the wells.
I'm gonna have to ride my bike down there sometime when I see you guys down there.
Yeah, I mean, reach out to me for a site visit. They do keep the site locked, 'cause it's a national defense contractor. Yeah, should. They're May, June.
Although,
Yeah, feel free to reach out with any other questions.
so we don't have to approve it, correct? Just informational.
No, thank you for.
Yeah, no,
I really appreciate it.
absolutely. I know.
No,
there's-
I knew we hit you with a lot of.
No, that's totally fine. I know there was
It was-
interest before, so, we are, proud of the work we did. The cleanup that we're doing, so.
You're getting good numbers.
So none of that mobility is going under the mound then? Or if it is, not to an extent that you're concerned with?
No, if it is, it's in groundwater, so there's, 10 feet or so below the mound and the impacted soil that we put there. But, some of the wells over here are to, better assess if there is a component that's going that way.
So once again, how does the mound differ from the well site?
The mound is,
You said you put it there, so we scraped up as what we could,
yeah,
and there's a lot of solids in there that couldn't just be easily mitigated or.
the mound is contaminated soil. All the, it's the soil that's contaminated. This area it's the groundwater that's contaminated, it's below groundwater.
So, but where did the soil from the mound come? Right above where the wells are, or is that?
No, it was,
already existing there?
They kind of come from all over the site usually.
Yeah.
They kind of put them and concentrate them in one spot.
Yeah, it was consolidated. A lot of it was in place already. Some of it was down. You can kind of see where it was cleared. Over in this area and
So
then.
some was pulled up and mounted up higher there.
Yeah.
Remember, we're talking about a lot of it was metal chips, just the scrap from their operations. They weren't.
There's a lot of weird stuff. Yeah, metal, like turnings,
Yeah.
metal shavings. You know, like you said, it was a.
Someday they might find a way to recycle that, because a lot of that could be titanium or valuable metals, because they were always a defense, a aerospace, factory.
Most machine shops now do recycle. all
Of
that.
course, they wouldn't throw that away ever.
My wife's a machinist.
It's all out there.
This is part of what she does.
Yeah.
They recycle everything.
Yeah, it's all-
They sweep up at the end of the shift, put it in a bucket and that's sold.
It's all alloys, expensive alloys. Some of, I've seen the stock metal. They have serial numbers on the bars and the metal and stuff, just to keep track of that stuff.
Yep. Some of the stuff comes in pretty expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, the place she's at, they make some aerospace, but they make a lot of, components for, heart surgery.
Medicals,
Like
yeah.
the stents and things like that.
That's the big thing.
The joke is between her and my brother who works at Pratt. My brother says his chips are bigger than parts. Sometimes that's true. I mean, I've seen these threaded screws that she's made sitting on a penny and it's on the date and it's smaller than the date on the
Wow.
penny.
Yeah, there's big money, there's big technology.
That's going in your ticket.
She doesn't work off the turnpike over there, because that's another Budney enterprise up there.
No, she's down in Merida.
That's what I mean, that's down in Meriden,
Oh, she.
because that's the same company that owned Atlantic was Budney's, so I know a young lady that works there too, but maybe it's not the same one.
My wife is not young. I'm not gonna get in trouble for that, but.
No, I'm just saying, I know another different.
Okay. Yeah, I tease her. Her commute to work is so short, her car doesn't get warm in the winter.
All
Are we
right.
done with Dan? We can let him go?
Yeah, hopefully in another 2 years, maybe we'll come back and give another update. See where we are.
Right about.
Oh, by then
in
we'll
line
have
with
condos.
the, at the end of the permit, so. Yeah, you get 5 years on this and then we have to either extend your or renew you.
Okay.
Whatnot.
Condos.
I worked on the Great Vestas plant, in Stratford, and turned that into a Walmart.
We work on that too.
Were you? And we might have been something. I was in and out of that site so many times, I'm taking 5 or 6 showers.
Look at Home Depot in West Hartford, they got the monitoring well right in the middle of the floor as you walk around, so. That was Chandler Evans, right?
Yep.
I did not work on Chandler.
I have a friend who does some grocery stores, and she just puts her groundwater monitoring equipment in the cart, pushes it around the store inside.
Yeah. Then that robot starts following her around.
That's really interesting, thank you.
Yeah, it's neat, it's a lot of sites are just, dig up the soil, send it to a landfill. But, to have kind of the complex bedrock that is in Newington there.
Is that a basalt rock, like what we have on our Cedar Mountain, when you say
It's
bedrock?
sandstone.
Yeah.
The shale, we used to call it shale, I know that's in
No,
that
it's
area
sandstone
too.
because that's an old riverbed.
Yeah.
When I think of bedrock, I think of something harder though. It doesn't have to be harder than.
No, like, it's not, there were kind of the veins of basalt that came up through this, not as hard sandstone.
Okay.
So it's, I actually drive, when I drive around the state, I try and find where it might look like it looks underground at the site.
So
And
between our trap rock ridges,
yeah,
in the
so
middle of
between
the
the
river.
trap rock, it's, kind of the red sandstone.
oh yeah, we have it over Stam Road, you could see it right on the side of the road if you really wanna observe the rock.
Yeah, I don't remember what it looks like there.
Yeah.
I know.
That's that
like-
reddish,
Yeah,
shale, we used to call it shale, but.
okay,
Portland Arcos.
yeah,
Mhm.
right. It's on,
Gotta remember something.
So that's a sedimentary rock,
yeah. Yeah, and
as
it's
opposed to the basalt, which is
igneous.
Mhm.
igneous.
Yeah, came up as lava and hardened up, so. Yeah, it's-
Quarry in Portland, which is where it got its name from, they would cut the blocks and send them down the river to New York where they built the brownstones.
Sure.
What was it, San Francisco? I think after the San Francisco earthquake, one of the only buildings left standing was made out of Portland Arcos.
Must have been expensive to ship it that
Oh,
far.
yeah.
That's because the stuff is not that stable, so the walls are always this thick, you know, they can't build a thin wall with brownstone.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, absolutely, thank you.
I do, we should go on a field trip.
So looks like we have. got a little-
John, I got my science degree from UConn, so if you want to know some cool geology places around Connecticut, let me know.
All right, guys, we're back to the meeting. We have only Andreas and Alan.
Okay, move on, communications reports, agent communications,
I have a couple of things for you. The first thing I've got is, Susan asked me to make a correction or just a point of information. That at last meeting, we entered into the record for the February minutes that we started at 7:15. And she pointed out that we actually started at 7:02, but we had that tech glitch at 7:15. So that's just a point of information for everybody. She also asks, and I forgot to do this, that we state when we start the meeting and end the meeting. Just so it makes it easier for her when she's doing the minutes. So that's minor items there.
Hey, Chris, may I interject real quick, a point of order? Did we ever approve the February minutes? Because I think when we went there last March, we got them so late, they were quotes extensive, that we said we're gonna push it off to the next meeting because people, members didn't have time actually to go through them. Is that your recollection?
I did save mine, so you might be right on this.
The only thing I can say to that is I'll have to take a look and see from the minutes of March if we approved February. Because
It's not in there.
I don't have an answer for you otherwise.
Just a point of order.
find that they have not been approved, attach them to the next meeting.
We'll put them on the agenda for May. Yeah, let me make a note about that because I'll forget.
Apparently they're not, because Andrea said they're not in the minutes.
I believe him. I do. And I have no recollection to the contrary. So that's the February minutes that we did not approve.
17th, yeah.
Yeah, because I think we got them that day, or some people said they didn't have a chance to read them or something.
They're quite thick. It was quite
It was.
heavy. Yeah.
This set was late too, and we had some trouble getting them approved, which is why the set you got in the mail didn't have a town clerk stamp on it. They were out of the office for training, which was unfortunate because it was the day that everybody, us planning and zoning, et cetera, tried to get all of their documents stamped in. It only happens when they're not here, you know. So agent communications for this month. I did an agent approval for utility poles at Beacon Park. There are 3 utility poles going in for the public Wi-Fi. And they're in upward review areas, not in wetlands themselves. Agent approval to replace deck piers at 63 Harris Drive. Property owner had gotten a permit many years ago for the deck. This is just needs to be replaced, and they're replacing the piers. In addition to that, this came in late this afternoon. I had a conversation with a homeowner at 165 Crestwood Road, which is south and east of here, up against, it's that neighborhood behind the Berlin Turnpike, north of East Robbins. It's a relatively small lot on the end of a cul-de-sac, and the lot drops off into the back where it runs up against an open space. That is the beginning of where the storm drainage for that neighborhood of Cedarwood and all that flows into, and then runs from there north to the swale that runs behind the plaza on Lowry Place. That then crosses Main Street and goes to Milmont Harbor.
Bring up the maps. Show us where this one is.
I will try.
First one.
Let's see what we can
Mr.
do.
Sherman, is there any of your family still up on the mountain there in the original homestead? No?
No,
I worked for whoever the matriarch there was.
oh yeah.
Grandmother Gertrude, yeah, she,
Little contemporary flat top house, I think.
yeah, they renovated it.
Yep.
I think it's 2 stories now.
Oh, okay. That road was. Yeah, you couldn't, it's quite valuable property now. At one time, no one wanted it really, and it was
Yeah,
it was affordable.
All right, this is our GIS. Turn the wetlands on. Scroll out a little bit to show you the bigger picture area. So this is Cedar Mountain here, with this big curve that's recognizable. Rolling Turnpike here. We are over here, right there. So zooming in on the area where Centerwood is. If you're heading south on Main Street, this is gonna be on your left. There's Northwood, Centerwood, and Southwood roads. At the end of Centerwood is a cul-de-sac. And it backs up against Forest Drive, that's the street I couldn't remember.
Oh, you said
earlier.
Crestwood earlier. That's what.
Mm,
threw me
yeah,
off.
That's why I was throwing off, yeah.
I didn't know about Crestwood.
So the problem I've got there is, it is Centerwood, but the sketch that the gentleman sent me, he called it Crestwood, and I just read off the map.
The guy who lives there called it Crestwood?
No, the contractor.
Oh,
You know how those contractors are, John, they never get the address. They're always coming in for permits with the wrong address. So the property in question is this one. This is the current owner. Castellano, I believe is how that's pronounced. And she is contracted with his name's not on here. It's a construction firm I'm not familiar with, but apparently they specialize in this type of work. And what he sent me, I'm just gonna pass this around because I don't have multiple copies of it, is they propose to put a 500-gallon PVC tank with a pump in the backyard and 2 yard drains that will drain into that with perforated pipe. And they intend to pump up to the street edge and let it run across the cul-de-sac.
stormwater?
Stormwater, to our catch basin. Now, he tells me that this works.
You're gonna want it flowing across the surface? How far does it have to go?
Well, I haven't even had a chance to talk to the highway superintendent yet, but we plan to meet out there and look at this.
It sounds a little odd.
Well, the scheme in question does sound odd.
can you turn on the contours?
Yeah, so I was wondering.
All right, so the blue is the catch basins. So here's the, again, this is the house in question
The
here.
water's gonna flow all the way across that circle and.
That's,
This is a flat, very flat road, as I recall, and to answer Greg's question, the way they built this is the houses are high. You can see how this contouring works here.
Mhm.
And then the backs are low, and are probably low for a reason. I suspect that under a substantial enough storm, you can see over here, this is where the storm drainage starts entering. I don't believe it's quite as robust a stream as this shows here. I have been out there to look at properties on this side on the Forest Street.
But she's gonna try to control stormwater with a 200-gallon vessel?
Yes. Yes,
Above ground?
in ground, which is why we're having this discussion, because they're gonna excavate to put this in.
It's gonna be like a yard
We're
somewhere.
gonna either need a
Yeah.
permit from the commission or
Why?
anything.
Which must be having a
I'm
problem.
not.
she must have wet, a really wet
On my
backyard.
own, is what I'm getting at. This will either come before the commission or it'll be on your blessing, it will be an agent approval. It is just, let me turn on the upland review area for.
I don't see a wetland risk per se right away, but I just would be concerned about icing on the road and
So this blue line,
quality of life for the people who live on that circle.
well,
Yeah.
so that's why Rob Hillman, the highway superintendent, and I will meet out there with her and the contractor at some point next week to discuss this. I'm currently not sold on the idea.
So they're gonna take a 500-gallon tank, they're gonna sink it in the ground.
500 or
What's gonna
200.
get into the tank?
Oh,
How's the water gonna get it
through yard drains. Where did the sketch is stuck in front of John?
Yep.
So they're proposing 2 yard drains with a perforated pipe connection between the yard drains and the storage tank. And then he tells me that the pump will cycle on with the tank getting full, kind of like,
Like a sump pump.
yeah,
They're gonna sump pump their yard.
yes. Yeah,
She should just petition the town to run her a storm lateral.
What
to
does
her
it look
property.
like now? Is it?
I haven't been there yet.
Oh.
This came in this afternoon as I was getting ready to eat my meager supper before this meeting.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. I don't like to eat too much before this because I'll just burp through the whole thing.
Interesting.
Thank you.
A yard sump
It's
pump?
getting close to my bedtime, so.
I've seen them, believe me, but not quite that large.
I've never heard of it.
I have, in the 35 or 40 years I've been doing this work, not seen somebody propose that they're going to pump out their backyard.
Yeah, that's,
But this contractor
In the worst of
tells-
conditions, it's gonna be, I think, a futile effort, and regardless.
The contractor tells her it's very
Right.
successful.
Mr. Wizard.
you're gonna have all these yard drains. It's gonna fill up with mud.
I'm not arguing
It's
that.
gonna die.
What are all those blue lines?
So the blue lines are storm drain. So the little squares are catch basins and
Well, the other blue lines are the lot lines, right?
Blue lines going through the property.
well, don't hold this GIS product as survey quality. It is not. This pipe more likely goes through this easement to get to the outlets someplace back here. We have hired, as you guys now well know, a very competent GIS tech, but she's got 5 years of not having anybody in that position to make up for. So I expect that she's got 20 years worth of work to do.
Like the chairman was saying, what are those blue lines that actually go through the houses?
Oh, okay, I said that earlier and you guys didn't hear me. So this particular blue line is the boundary of the upland review.
Oh,
And this blue line is the boundary between the upland review and the wetlands.
so the wetlands pretty much runs right on the property lines.
You know, we've had this discussion.
Yeah, I'm just saying, that's how it shows.
It is exactly how it shows.
That little right of way there, I almost bought a house in the neighborhood, and I had little kids and we were into bike riding. I went up and looked at it, it's right between 2 yards, you can't tell that it's there, but I knew it was there, and I told the one guy was out mowing his lawn or something, I said, oh, kids, we're gonna be using this trail because there's nice trails, you can go right to the center of town through there. And he didn't seem too thrilled about it, but we never bought the house.
Devil's in the details, it may only be a storm, I don't know.
No, I thought I saw somewhere that it was supposed to be access to the center of town because,
Geez, that would be a tough route if that hatchery was.
no, there's trails back there.
There's
Yeah,
trails
there's a
back there.
path on the end of that other street.
At
there.
the end of
Path
Forest,
goes
you can get over to the
Yeah.
apartment buildings.
Yes, so this one goes into the same
I saw you
network
walk
there.
all the
It's pretty
time.
muddy though. I've been there a couple times.
Yeah, but once you get to the sump pump, then it won't be.
Yeah. She's gonna dry that
You're
whole
gonna
area
pump
out.
out the entire area.
That 500 gallons.
Eversource is gonna send her a Christmas card.
They will, they're gonna have to put another nuke online.
Looks like there's enough storm drainage infrastructure in the area that she should just try to tap into that. It might be the same cost of what she's gonna pay this guy.
I suggested running the pump into that, if she wanted to try and go that route, but we're not there yet.
Just a narrow trench.
I'm not comfortable with the idea of
If you're
just
gonna
letting the
do a
water
narrow
run.
trench, you might as well put a 6-inch pipe in.
So it sounds like it's too early for us to
Yeah,
say whether this is agent approval.
It's an interesting idea.
I had made the promise that I would bring it to your attention tonight because we were meeting tonight. Yes, it's in that category of things. So that's all I've got for agent communications, as far as I remember, that's all I've written down anyway. So let me get back to the PowerPoint.
There's another item, since we missed those minutes, I think there's another item we missed. That we tabled, something, came from some conservation organization asking us to join.
Yes, there was a correspondence that I,
So we need to
Hand
get
it
that
out.
on the application and get that distributed to the members so we can visit that.
are you interested in this organization?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what we-
All right. And, you know, just on that note, there is a small budget for some forms of training for the commissioners. It's not enough for everybody to go in the same year to whatever you'd like to go to. And so far it has survived the budget process, but it's something that goes unused in most years. So I bring it to your attention for that. Now, when I go to one of these things, I pay for it out of my engineering budget. I don't pay for my going to these out of the Conservation Commission budget. Just so that doesn't come up as a question at some point.
That was we would join the,
We did join Catwick,
Kedwick, okay,
Yeah.
we did join that.
yes.
Okay.
And we did renew that last year.
I didn't go to the meeting this year, but I went to the last one.
It's usually on a Saturday that I have something more interesting to do. I say that selfishly, that's all.
Into who?
I imagine. Yeah, I did go to the cause, that's the Connecticut Association of Wetland Scientists meeting with their Paul, the town planner, and I went. Primarily because there's supposed to be some presentations, changes to the federal permitting, the 401 permitting process. And it doesn't apply to the commission level at all. It's state and federal permitting changes. So that was my thought about why I wanted to go to it, and it didn't matter to me. And the rest of it was interesting, but it was not the point of going to the meeting this year. So would we like to, we can't do town council liaisons because they're both downstairs.
Skip over on life research.
And Alan is offline.
I saw a couple of hooded mergansers at Mill Pond. Never seen them there before. That was kind of cool. That's all I have to add.
Never even heard of it. What are they? A duck?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Funky looking ducks. I've never seen them in my life, and I've seen them twice this year, so I'm excited.
Have a nesting pair of wood ducks. It's called the St. Mary's Path. Runs through it. Neighbors' houses, so I reported it to that wildlife diversity database that Pete maintains. So it's noted.
Oh, I guess I'll add my one thing that I heard one of the vernal pools closer to my house, I heard the wood frogs. You made me think of it when you said wood duck. Is that like an endangered duck like this or
I
rare?
don't know. Don't really know what their status is, but I reported it.
But I heard the vernal pool activity, but I think that cold snap probably either sent them back in the ground or they gave up on, mating this year.
Yeah, it was cold enough. I share that sympathy. Crawled back into the mud. That was the final item.
Sure.
Wants to make the motion.
I'll motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Unanimously.
Who was the second?
Meeting has ended.
Here I'm snowing, like mid Vermont in New Hampshire on Sunday.
Stop the recording.
Yes.
I actually worked with, but never anything this cool.